That'll do for now. It'll keep some of my newly found warm air inside. I need to take it off at some point soon anyway, probably wait till the spring, because I need to put some extra spars connected to the roof joist through that board to connect the guttering onto. So at the moment I'll give myself 8 out of 10 for the scribe. Actually the scribe's okay, but it also needs to be on a 22 degrees angle as well. So when I take it back off and scribe around the new spars, I'll just finesse the scribe so it fits perfectly. But it'll keep my little feathered friends from venturing inside. So what I've done there, I've been meaning to do ages. I'm going to do it over the other door. And then there's an opening above the back of the wall there, which I can't actually get to because of all the stuff. So I might just fit a board temporary on the other side. So the plan long term is once I put the spars through, I'm going to fit some tongue and groove boards that matches the doors above there, which will create a void about 3 inch wide, the thickness of that beam, and I'll stuff that full of insulation. Okay, so this corner needs a bit of a clean now, but I think we've come to a little bit of a crossroads in the build. We've got this side of the workshop framed out, the walls are done, the ceiling is framed, needs insulating, needs plasterboarding. I've now cut the drafts off above the doors and around the side. Yes, it needs a little bit of further work, and that'll be done in the spring when it gets a bit warmer out there. But I thought I'd share with you my plans for this corner. For anybody who's been watching the channel for a while, so you may have seen a couple of videos. Video number 1, which is the best performing video on this channel still, even though I made a bit of a blunder with the audio mix, is the fold down MFT bench that I made for the small loft workshop. And the other video is the fold out outdoor workbench that I made to work outside when it was too hot to work in the loft. I'm going to amalgamate them two builds here with a little bit of a tweak. So the first thing I want to do with this bench is to incorporate my Triton half-inch router. A few weeks ago I said when I was reviewing this work table here that I've bought over the years lots of half-inch router cutters and they're not being utilised because I haven't got my half-inch router set up. Secondly, I'm going to make it so it folds down, but I need to make it so it falls down and accepts the depth of this body of the router, which is just over 10 inch. So my idea is I'll build a unit on this wall that's about 10 inch, 12 inch deep and is static. I will then on the front of that build a drop down leaf and allow the router to locate in a little niche or a little hole in it so it can drop down vertically and give me all this area to work in. That will mean that the whole thing is about 900 millimeters wide, so that wide. The router will be positioned to the front of the table, so it means that when I'm working at it, I can actually feed my timber across the router table, and I have round about 2 meters to do that. But if I have some longer stock, I can actually feed it out through the window. I just need to realign this window slightly. When I started building in here a couple of years ago, putting the window in was one of the first things. And even though it's plumb and square, it's not aligned properly to the inner face because the inner face came much later in the build. So it means that I can't open the windows fully open as you do with French windows. So I just need to undo the fixing on this window and bring the whole thing in about 1/2 inch to allow me to fold these windows flat back to the wall, and then I can use the hole when it's warm enough to run things through. I will make this table so it'll be a drop down leaf. It'll be a little bit like I want to say a little bit like my granny's drop down leaf table. It used to be really popular. I'm not sure if they still are, if I'm honest. Tool storage that's accessible. Now I am toying with the idea of putting the whole thing on wheels and making it in such a way that I can mount it off the wall and then unmount it and move it around, even take it outside. In the summer, I really like to woodwork outside if you've got something really big. It won't be long before they're in the workshop. I'll also use this fence that I use on the other router table, so I'll just need to router some T-tracks into the top and also T-tracks in the top for my coping sled. The rest of the top will be MFTs and also to mount my bench dog equipment. In fact, the bench dog equipment could probably be mounted in the back 12 inch or so that's not going to be fall down, and then it can actually be there permanently and put it down. So that's the idea of the plan. I'm contemplating making the top out of 18mm melamine face chipboard MFC, which is what the bench is made out of on the other side of the workshop. And the bench has been there now for about 15 months. So it's gone through a couple of winters and a summer. I'm keen to see how it stood up in that time. So let's just do a couple of little experiments. So when I made this bench, I only opened up the doggles that I actually needed. So most of them are not open just because everything tends to fall down and you lose it or it dirties stuff underneath. So it was just worth, whilst we were looking at this, is looking at how this bench has actually stood up to the test of time. So that's the K-jig ruler and these are the pins. I just put my pin in there and then my pin in there. I can just get that pin in. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in the 15 months since I built this bench, and it's had a lot of use and it's gone through, say, a lot of cycles of hot, cold, humid, dry. Today it is 63% humidity in here. I've seen it up to 80 and even 90. And in the summer months it can get really dry in here. So it's done a lot. Bearing in mind that this melamine face chipboard top cost me about €16, £15, something like that. I think it's actually a good way to build a top, because for that kind of money you don't mind if you destroy it and have to change it, whereas if you used other kinds of material, not quite sure what other kind of material I'd use. MRMDF, possibly. Very hard to get here without putting it on order and having it delivered, and then it is really, really expensive. I think the last time I tried to price a sheet of 18mm MRMDF up, it was something like €160 delivered. So I could almost have 10 of these tops for the price of that. I could use that yellow stuff, the veggie wood as I call it, which would be probably perfect for a worktop bench in every way apart from one. I found using it on a few projects that it is very, very soft, so it dents in the face really, really easy. So that kind of puts me off from using it for a workbench. Plywood I could use, but I don't really think that plywood would be any more stable than what this melamine face chipboard is. So I'm going to build that bench with melamine face chipboard. So next week I'm going on a cycling holiday, so it won't be a video, but I'll be back the week after with a new video of the building here, and it brings us to a little bit of a crossroads. Do we carry on framing the barn out, getting the ceiling in, insulating the ceiling, depends how cold it is, or do I make a start on the furniture?